Yeah, sorry I'm a few minutes late. The technology was not cooperating. I couldn't get on, but I think here we are. So, chapter 14. What is it? 803. Chapter 14 of the Ribhu Gita. Inquiring, inquiring into the undivided nature. Listen, number one. In this exposition to the gist of the secret of all the settled conclusions, there is no duality or non-duality which are talked about. Only the peaceful Brahman is ever existent. Brahman, which is the one that exists without defect, always, everywhere, is you and I. All are of the nature of that supreme Brahman. Hence you should start inquiring into this. 2. I'm ever of the nature of the supreme Brahman. I'm ever of the nature of the supreme Shiva. I'm ever of the nature of the supreme self. I'm ever of the nature that is higher than the highest. I'm ever of the nature that is pure. I'm ever of the nature that is perfectly full. I'm ever of the nature of the undivided supreme. Inquire steadfastly into this every day. 3. I'm ever the imperishable existence. I'm ever the shining consciousness. I'm ever the peerless bliss. I'm ever the one undivided essence. I'm ever the all-pervasive. I'm ever the one that is all. I'm ever the undivided Supreme Brahman. Inquire steadfastly into this every day. 4. I'm ever the Supreme, denoted by the word that. I'm ever the Supreme, denoted by the word you. I'm ever the Supreme, denoted by the word are. I'm ever the one undivided essence. I'm ever the innermost of all. I'm ever the exterior of all. I'm ever the undivided Supreme Brahman. Inquire steadfastly into this every day. 5. I'm ever of the nature of the eternal. I'm ever of the nature of the attributeless. I'm ever of the nature of the taintless. I'm ever of the nature of the sheathless. I'm ever of the nature of the partless. I'm ever of the nature of the unafflicted. I'm ever of the nature of the all-pervasive Supreme. Inquire steadfastly into this every day. 6. I'm ever of the nature of the infinite. I'm ever of the nature of the undecaying. I'm ever of the nature of the imperishable. I'm ever of the nature of the blissful. I'm ever of the nature of liberation. I'm ever of the nature of the liberator. I'm ever of the nature of the undivided Supreme. Inquire steadfastly into this every day. 7. I am of the nature of the cause of all. I am of the nature that is completely full. I am of the nature of all individuals and the Supreme. I am of the nature that is not even an atom. I am of the nature that is ever peaceful. I am ever of the nature of the One. I am of the nature of the undivided Supreme. Inquire steadfastly into this every day. Number 8. I am of the nature of all activity. I am of the nature of the doer of all. I am of the nature of the protector of all. I am of the nature of the destroyer of all. I am of the nature that is not anything. I am of the nature that is established as myself. I am ever of the nature of the undivided Absolute. Inquire steadfastly into this every day. Number 9. I am of the nature of all elements. I am of the nature of all the composites of all elements. I am of the nature of the witness of all. I am of the nature of the evidence of all. I am of the nature that has nothing ever apart from it. I am ever of the nature of non-duality. I am ever of the nature of the undivided Absolute. Inquire steadfastly into this every day. 10. I am ever of the nature of you. I am ever of the nature of I. I am ever of the nature of others. I am ever of the nature of the self of all. I am ever of the nature of the motionless. I am ever of the nature of the connectionless Supreme. I am ever of the nature of the undivided Absolute. Inquire steadfastly into this every day. 11. I am ever of the nature full of consciousness. I am ever of the nature of a mass of consciousness. I am ever of the nature of consciousness alone. I am ever of the nature clothed in consciousness. I am ever of the nature of the space of consciousness. I am ever of the nature of consciousness. I am ever of the nature of consciousness Brahman. Inquire steadfastly into this every day. 12. I am of the nature of the substratum of all. I am of the nature of the form of all. I am of the nature that has not an atom apart from it. I am of the nature that is only myself. I am ever of the nature of the bodiless. I am of the nature of the pure space. I am of the nature of the pure Supreme Brahman. Inquire steadfastly into this every day. 13. I am of the nature of the Guru. I am also of the nature of all disciples. I am of the nature of all the means. I am also the nature of all the ends. I am of the nature of all the Vedanta. I am of the nature of what is to be comprehended through them. I am of the nature of the pure Supreme Brahman. Inquire steadfastly into this every day. 14. I am ever of the nature of the ancient. I am ever of the nature of the complete. I am ever of the nature of the imperishable. I am ever of the nature of the indestructible. I am ever of the nature of that which alone is. I am ever of the nature of the sorrowless. I am ever of the nature of the Supreme Brahman. Inquire steadfastly into this every day. 15. I am ever of the nature of the undivided Supreme God. I am ever of the nature of the blemishless Supreme Knowledge. I am ever of the nature of the Supreme Existence. I am ever of the nature of the Supreme Bliss. I am ever of the nature of the Supreme Light. I am ever of the nature of the Supreme Abode. I am ever of the nature of the Supreme Brahman. Inquire steadfastly into this every day. 16. I am of the nature of the innermost of all. I am ever of the nature of the self of all. I am of the nature of the all-auspicious. I am of the nature that has not an atom of impurity. I am of the nature of the Supreme Fourth State. I am of the Supreme Nature transcending the Fourth State. I am ever of the nature of the Supreme Brahman. Inquire steadfastly into this every day. 17. I transcend all time. I transcend all space. I transcend all objects. I ever transcend everything. I am of the nature that has not an atom of conceit. I am of the nature that has not an atom of attachment. I am of the nature of the Immaculate Supreme Brahman. Inquire steadfastly into this every day. 18. I am ever of the nature of existence alone. I am ever of the nature of consciousness alone. I am ever of the nature of only the good. I am ever of the nature of the middle path. I am ever of the nature of the non-dual. I am of the nature of the self of all. I am ever of the nature of the Supreme Brahman. Inquire steadfastly into this every day. 19. I am ever the unfading bliss. I am all pervasive and motionless. I am ever volitionless. I am the Supreme that cannot be comprehended by anything. I am ever without intellect and such. I am ever the abode that transcends the intellect. I am ever the Supreme Brahman. Inquire steadfastly into this every day. 20. I am of the nature that is without an atom of delusion. 20. I am of the nature that is without an atom of delusion. I am of the nature that has no attributes of illusion. I am of the nature that is without mind or such. I am of the nature that is without desire or such. I am of the nature that is without form or such. I am of the nature that is without any modifications of these. I am of the nature of the Immaculate Supreme Brahman. Inquire steadfastly into this every day. 21. I am of the nature without any waker and others. I am of the nature without waking or such. I am of the nature of the knowledge of the fourth state. I am of the nature of the Supreme Shiva. I am of the nature that is defectless. I am of the nature of consciousness, devoid of worldly misery. I am ever of the nature of the Supreme Brahman. Inquire steadfastly into this every day. 22. I am ever of the nature of the Lord. I am ever of the nature of supreme knowledge. I am ever of the nature of the all-pervasive. I am ever of the nature of empirical knowledge. I am ever of the nature of being all. I am of the nature of existence, consciousness, bliss. I am ever of the nature of the Supreme Brahman. Inquire steadfastly into this every day. 23. I am ever Brahman, the taintless. I am ever Brahman, the partless. I am ever Brahman, the afflictionless. I am ever Brahman, the pure. I am ever Brahman, the attributeless. I'm ever Brahman, the peerless. I'm ever the pure supreme. Inquire steadfastly into this every day. 24. I'm the world with all names and forms. I am of the nature of the substratum of all. I am the front, the back, the sides, the top, and the bottom. I am of the nature of the undivided knowledge. I am of the nature of the bliss that is myself, without an atom apart from it. I am ever of the nature of the undivided supreme. Inquire steadfastly into this every day. 25. I am of the rare nature, unattainable by the ignorant, who have no knowledge of the self. I am of the nature of the supreme, easily attainable by those with knowledge of the self. I am of the nature of the supreme, the all-pervasive, undivided space of consciousness. I am of the nature of the pure supreme Brahman. Inquire steadfastly into this every day. 26. I am ever of the nature of the undivided absolute, without the sextet of modifications. I am ever of the nature of the undivided absolute, without bondage, and ever free. I am ever of the nature of the complete bliss, remaining undisturbed. I am ever of the nature of the supreme Brahman. Inquire steadfastly into this every day. 27. I am ever of the nature of the peaceful Brahman, without a trace of fixed ideas or delusion. I am of the nature of the supreme Brahman, the undivided light, without day or night. I am ever of the nature of the undivided supreme bliss, without an atom of ego or such. I am ever of the nature of the supreme Brahman. Inquire steadfastly into this every day. 28. I am ever of the nature of the supreme Brahman, the undivided knowledge without an ego. It is the ego that is ever the misery of worldly existence. The great truth is, there is no ego, and that there is not an atom apart from me. I am undivided, complete, and full. I am ever the supreme Brahman. Inquire steadfastly into this every day. You are I am I. All else that is I. There's no doubt about this. Without any duality, be continuously immersed in the meditation that pure I is the supreme Brahman. There's no delusion, no consequences of delusion, and no difference of any kind whatsoever, nothing at all. I am the supreme Brahman. Inquire steadfastly into this every day. 30. Without me, there's nothing that is the meaning for the term that. Without me, there's nothing that is the meaning of the term you. Without me, there's nothing that is the meaning for the term are. Without me, there's nothing undivided. Without me, there's no reality or unreality. Without me, there's no intelligence or insentience. Without me, there's not a thing, ever. Be ever immersed in the meditation that I am Brahman. 31. Without me, there's no difference as this man. Without me, there's no difference as this woman. Without me, there's no difference as this thing. Without me, there's no difference as that thing. Without me, there's no difference such as is here. Without me, There's no difference such as is not here. Without me, there's not an atom of difference. Be ever immersed in the meditation that I am Brahman. 32. What is seen as this is Brahman only. What is seen as myself is Brahman only. What is seen as that is Brahman only. What is seen as manifold is Brahman only. What is seen as stable is Brahman only. What is seen as unstable is Brahman only. Whatever is looked at as what is this is Brahman alone. Be ever immersed in the meditation that I am that. 33. The primal ignorance is Brahman alone. The emerging thought and such are Brahman alone. The body with a form is Brahman alone. The individual senses are Brahman alone. Time and space are Brahman alone. All things that are seen are Brahman alone. All is only Brahman, the abode, and that is myself. Be ever immersed in the meditation that I am that. 34. Space and the other elements are Brahman alone. All that pertains to nature is Brahman alone. What is thought of as I, is Brahman alone. What is thought of as not I is also Brahman alone. What are thought of as you and I are also Brahman alone. All thoughts are Brahman alone. The originless Brahman alone is all. And that is myself. Be steadfastly immersed in this inquiry. 35. There is no such thing as the words or the sentences they constitute. There is no Gita or other treatises or their authors. There's none of the unreal world or jivas. There's no Ishvara who bestows desired things. The Supreme Brahman, which is drossless, attributeless, timeless, blemishless, intersticeless, all-pervasive, and motionless, is all. I am that Brahman. Be steadfastly immersed in this inquiry. 36. I am Brahman. I am Brahman. I indeed am all. I am Brahman. I am all. Daily and continuously be immersed in this inquiry until this mode of I am Brahman becomes stabilized. After this I am Brahman bhava, conviction, is stabilized, cast this off too, and becoming Brahman, be established changelessly in the undivided blissful experience. 37. Those who sincerely practice the knowledge that I am the Supreme Brahman, of the nature of the eternal, partless, delusionless, taintless, afflictionless, blemishless, motionless, ancient mass of bliss, the reality, the utterly peaceful consciousness, will have the awareness of non-duality and thereby become the undivided Supreme. There's no doubt about this. 38. Hence, until all differentiation disappears, one should always remain in this beneficent bhava, conviction, that all is Brahman, and I am indeed that superior Brahman, with love, with ardor, and without differences. until all uncertainty and confusion disappear totally, and unmindful of anything else, be in repose, in bliss. (39) In this exposition thus given to me by the Supreme Shiva, there is not an atom of doubt. It is the truth, the truth. There is no doubt about it. Whoever listens to this and understands this, even once, will be liberated and become the one Supreme Brahman. I have graciously told you this true meaning, which is extremely rare to find anywhere. 40. Son, only those who, smeared with holy ashes, decked with Rudraksha, and devoted to Shiva, are ever in meditation upon the Supreme Shiva, will be rid of the sorrowful bondage of worldly existence, and become of the nature of that one Supreme Shiva. Thus the great sage Ribhu explained to Nidaga the meditation of oneness. It is the perfectly full form of our Lord in a state of joyous dance that tells of the meditation, that the wonderful beings that appear, the mysterious world that appears as if jewel, and the ancient Lord, Ishvara, who is eulogized, are all the perfectly full absolute and nothing apart, and I am ever that absolute. I am all. So we've come to the end of chapter 14. I wish you a great day. Bye for now.